All right, I've had a lot of requests to test the battery life on the Legion Go S Z2 Go version. So today I want to take a fairly quick look at 25 games that are, for the most part, low TDP games. These kind of games I personally think are a great fit for handheld PCs, as you don't have to sweat battery life as much with the more graphically intense games. Maybe you're asking, what is TDP? Well, if you're not familiar, TDP stands for thermal design power, or in other words, the maximum amount of power the system will allocate to the CPU and GPU. At least that's my oversimplified explanation in this scenario. We'll also look at TSP, or total system power today, which is the prior number plus any additional power consumed by things like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, screen backlight, etc. This number is the actual total draw on the battery of the device, so that's what we're most concerned with. A couple ground rules for the testing for the device. I am using the Legion Go S SteamOS edition with the Z2 Go chipset, which is the slower of the two options, and it has 16 gigabytes of RAM. I left all of these games at their native resolution, which is 1920 by 1200, with the exception of some games running at 1080p, because they only support the 16:9 aspect ratio and not the native 16:10 aspect ratio of the Legion Go screen. I tried to target a stable 60 FPS frame rate without any noticeable dips or hitches. And that being said, some of these games might require a little bit more power or dip in frame rates if, say, there's like a lot of enemies or effects on the screens. So please take these as estimates and not guarantees. But this already took quite a bit of time to test, and I wasn't about to play 25 different games for 20 hours each. That would be a lot. So the nice thing though is that the variable refresh rate on the screen of the Legion Go S helps smooth out any periods of lower frame rate. And if you aren't familiar with what that is, variable refresh means that the screen can refresh at the same rate as the GPU is outputting frames, so that you don't have any screen tearing, and helps smooth out and not have like any stutters or anything like that. It's not perfect, but it does help over a handheld that does not have VRR. These total system power numbers may also vary in your use depending on how bright the screen is, how loud the speakers are, if Wi-Fi is on, etc. In my testing, I used about 2/3 brightness and very low volume on the speakers, and I did leave Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on. You can definitely drop the wattage a tiny bit by disabling some of these things and turning down brightness if you're really trying to stretch out the battery life. All right, so let's bring up the chart and take a look. I'm not gonna beat around the bush here. Let's get straight to the numbers. The first 9 games on the list today were all able to hit a 60 FPS target with just a 5-watt TDP setting, which is the minimum that SteamOS allows you to set. Total system power ranges from 8 to 9.5 watts depending on the game, and again, possibly small variations in brightness and volume, etc. This group includes Celeste, Risk of Rain Returns, Stardew Valley, Vampire Survivors, Dawnfolk, Dead Cells, Halls of Torment, Balatro, and Brotato. These games approach or exceed an estimated 6 hours of runtime, so these are the games that you're going to want to play if you're away from a charger for an extended time. This is pretty great battery life for a handheld PC, so I was happy to see these numbers. In the next 5 titles here, we still see a battery life of 5 or more hours, encompassing TDP values of 6 or 7 watts to reach the 60 frame per second target. This includes Axolotl, Skull, Backpack Battles, Ballistic NG, and Dome Keeper. These are still excellent extended battery life choices. In fact, I would still argue that the next group with 4+ hours estimated battery life are still good choices for on the go. With TDP values ranging from 8 to 9 watts required to hit 60 FPS, once again, we have Heroes of Hammerwatch 2, Rogue Legacy 2, Hades 2, I'm sensing a sequel theme here, and The Sloremancer. Actually, I'll throw in Death Must Die also at 3 hours and 57 minutes runtime, because that may as well be 4 hours. The next 5 games range from 9 to 12 watts TDP required for a smooth 60 frames and includes Thronefall, Dredge, Gunfire Reborn, Little Gator Game, and Core Keeper. These games are 3+ hour runtime titles, which isn't terrible, but starting to approach the region that I wouldn't necessarily call great battery life. And finally, sort of by accident, I included one game that's quite a bit more power hungry, but I think that's good because it does provide a reference point. Jotun Slayer Hordes of Hell is deceptively power hungry for the simple Vampire Survivors clone type game, and it needs a 16-watt TDP setting, slurping up 23 watts of total system power. This puts us at around 2 1/3 hours. I think this data point is of note because the Steam Deck operates at a 15-watt TDP max, and while this is 16 not 15, it's close enough that you can kind of see that when running a game that requires the max juice the Steam Deck can output, the Legion Go S will last between 2 and 2.5 hours, and this is pretty much the same that you'll see on a Steam Deck OLED running a demanding game. So how does this compare in general to the Steam Deck OLED? Well, as I just mentioned, in worst case, they are about tied and probably outputting very similar performance at a 15 watt TDP. Keep in mind the Legion Go S can go up to 33 watts, so it is possible to get better performance than the Deck, but at a battery life cost and bringing runtime under 2 hours, maybe even as low as a bit more than 1 hour on the Legion Go S. I actually didn't have this Deck OLED on hand when I ran all these benchmarks about a week ago, so I don't have hard numbers for how they compare at low TDP, but I think that the Deck OLED still has a slight upper hand. You know, anecdotally speaking, I have seen reviews and quotes stating that the Deck OLED can get 7 to 8 hours or more at very low TDP gaming, so it may be able to get just a bit more efficient for those super low TDP games. Still, at 6 hours on the Go S, it's not like we're crazy far off from the Steam Deck OLED. And now for a quick bonus round, I tested a few of these games at a full 120 frames per second to take advantage of the 120 Hz panel on the Legion Go S. Sorry for putting in the reverse order of the last chart this time, but we see here a range of from 3 to nearly 6 hours of battery life depending on the game when running at 120 frames per second. The winner here, Brotato, actually takes so little power that it was nearly the same draw at 120 FPS as it was at 60 FPS. On the other end, something like Hades 2 did take another 4.5 watts of system power to hit the target FPS, so its runtime did decrease from about 4 hours and 20 minutes to just 3 hours and 15 minutes, losing an hour. Personally, I think a game like Hades 2 and Dead Cells deserve to be played at 120 frames per second because of just how smooth they are, but it is nice to be able to have a choice of a bit more runtime at a sacrifice of extra smoothness to the gameplay. You can choose your own adventure there. So I hope this video helped anyone looking at the Legion Go S Z2 Go chipset family of devices and help you decide if it's the right choice for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Legion Go S and handheld gaming content. Thanks and have a good one.